Hello and welcome to the program today. I'm Layo Olarinde. We begin in the Democratic Republic of Congo, where the streets of the capital Kinshasa appear calm after the army announced it had foiled a coup attempt. The coup attempt took place in the early hours of Sunday at the Place de la Nation. Now, armed men in military uniform raided the office of President Felix Tshisekedi, who was not present at the time, but the army engaged the assailants, killing some of them and restoring calm in the city. DR Congo Army spokesperson Brigadier General Sylvain Ekeng said that 50 suspects, including 3 Americans and a naturalized British citizen, have been detained. Local media reports that the assailants were members of the New Zaire movement linked to formerly exiled DR Congo politician Christian Malanga, who has acquired American citizenship. Mr. Ekeng said Mr. Malanga was shot dead at the presidential palace after he resisted arrest by security forces. His son, Marcel Malanga, was among the 3 American nationals arrested over the alleged coup attempt.
Les forces armées de la République démocratique du Congo.
The armed forces of the Democratic Republic of Congo are informing national and international public that an attempted coup d'etat has been thwarted by the defense and security forces. The attempt involved foreigners and Congolese. These foreigners and Congolese were put out of action, including their leader. The armies of the Democratic Republic of the Congo are asking the population to go about their business freely and peacefully. The defense and security forces are in full control of the situation.
Both the U.S. and Niger have agreed that American troops will leave the country no later than the 15th of September. Both nations announced in a joint statement on Sunday saying the 2 countries had reached a disengagement agreement to effect the withdrawal of U.S. forces, which has already begun. The deal was reached after marathon talks between the 2 countries in Niamey. The U.S. had relied on Niger as its primary base for monitoring regional jihadist activity. American forces have used 2 military bases in Niger to monitor Islamist militant groups in the Sahel. Now, the U.S. built a $100 million military base there 6 years ago in the central city of Agadez. That's 750 kilometers northeast of Niamey. It has played a key role in the U.S. strategy to combat jihadists in West Africa. The U.S. has more than 1,000 troops stationed at the base, and it's the second Western power to withdraw from Niger after France. And as the war in Sudan rages on, UN humanitarians are warning that brutal violence, famine, disease, and widespread displacement are haunting 9 million Sudanese people, including 4 million children. According to a spokesperson for UN Humanitarian Affairs Coordination Office, famine and diseases are closing in on these people. Half of Sudan's population, some 25 million people, are estimated to be in desperate need of humanitarian aid.
In Sudan, half of the population, 25 million people, need humanitarian aid. Famine is closing in, diseases are closing in, the fighting is closing in on civilians, especially in Darfur. The overall response plan aims to reach and support 15 million of the worst affected people. Collectively, we ask for $2.7 billion American dollars. As of today, 4.5 months into the year, we have received 12% of that. This is not just an underfunded appeal. It is a catastrophically underfunded appeal.
13 months of war in Sudan, 9 million people displaced, which represents around 17% of the population, and the largest internal displacement crisis in the world today. Close to 16,000 people have died and 33,000 have been injured. By the toll, but the toll of the war is probably much higher.
There is what I can term a silent emergency happening in Uganda, where 300,000 have come over the past 2.5 years, most of whom have come from South Sudan and the DRC. We have had recent arrivals from Sudan as well. This year alone, about 19,000 refugees have come from Sudan.
Meanwhile, the situation in Darfur, Sudan, is concerning for the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk. He is renewing his calls on both parties to the conflict in Sudan to end hostilities, voicing his horror at the situation in El Fasher. Spokesperson for the Office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Ravina Shamdasani, says Mr. Turk spoke with both warring leaders, urging both generals to take action immediately.
UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, is horrified by the escalating violence in El Fasher in Darfur, where hostilities between the Sudanese armed forces and the Rapid Support Forces, backed by their respective allied armed groups, are having a deeply devastating toll on civilians. At least 58 civilians are reported to have been killed and 213 others injured in El Fasher since fighting dramatically escalated last week. And these figures are certainly an underestimate. He also called on them to put aside entrenched positions and take specific, concrete steps to cease hostilities and to ensure the effective protection of civilians, as is their obligation under international human rights law and humanitarian law. This is also consistent with their commitments under the Jeddah Declaration agreed in May 2023. We warn both commanders that fighting in El Fasher, where more than 1.8 million residents and internally displaced people are currently encircled and at imminent risk of famine, would have a catastrophic impact on civilians, and it would deepen intercommunal conflict with disastrous humanitarian consequences.
In South Africa, the highest court has barred former President Jacob Zuma from running for parliament in next week's general election. The Constitutional Court ruled that his 15-month prison sentence for contempt of court, a crime under South African law, disqualifies him. Mr. Zuma was convicted in 2021 for refusing to testify at an inquiry investigating corruption during his presidency, which ended in 2018. He has been campaigning under the banner of the newly formed Umkhonto weSizwe Party, the MK Party, after falling out with the governing African National Congress. MK Secretary General Sile Ngubane says the party was disappointed with the ruling, but it would not affect the party's campaign, and Mr. Zuma's face would remain on the ballot paper for the 29th of May election. President Bola Tinubu of Nigeria has extended his condolences to the government and the people of the Islamic Republic of Iran over the passing of President Ebrahim Raisi, the Iranian Foreign Minister Hossein Amir Abdollahian, and other officials in a helicopter crash. In a statement issued by his spokesperson, Ajuri Ngelale, President Tinubu expressed profound grief over the tragedy, describing President Raisi as a leader who was passionately committed to the development of Iran. While commiserating with the bereaved families, President Tinubu prayed for the continuous peace, stability, and prosperity of the Iranian nation. On behalf of the government and people of Nigeria, the president also assured the Islamic Republic of Nigeria's support and prayers. And still in Nigeria, the Lagos State government has launched sensitization tools for voluntary compliance with physical planning permits, laws, and obtaining planning permits. The State Commissioner for Physical Planning and Urban Development, Mr. Olumide Oluyinka, who unveiled the sensitization tools, says the initiative is to increase public awareness about physical planning issues and approval, to prevent individuals from falling victims of fraudsters producing fake building permit documents.
New structures spring up in Lagos State every day. Monitoring various regulatory agencies show some buildings under construction check all the boxes, but not everyone goes by the books, as other property owners fail to secure the necessary building permits and face the consequences of demolition by the state government.
We will start from there.
The Lagos State Physical Planning Permit Authority is at GRA Ikeja to unveil tools that will educate residents on all the steps to get the necessary building approvals.
LASPA has also designed a car stickers, where at the back of a car or in front of a car you can place a sticker telling us spontaneously what planning permit is all about. Why you need to, for the information of the public, we have seen where developers have actually processed fake planning permits. Fake planning permits. There are a lot of buildings there that we have been able to apprehend with fake planning permits. So we are using this opportunity to tell people to be aware. When you have commissioned a third party to help you process planning permits, please be very careful. Don't patronize touts. Our offices, we have 50 offices all over the states.
These tools will be used to educate residents across all local government areas to ensure compliance with the building regulations.
Want to prepare yourself for anything in life, you need to plan. And that is why fiscal planning is very important. Nobody, again, will claim that he or she was not informed. Now, I do not know how to get the permit. My own counsel to all of the people who are involved in this is that they should make sure that it reaches far and wide, so that the whole world will know that we have done everything that we need to do in terms of sensitizing our people how to build right.
The importance of knowledge, as we all know, cannot be underestimated, and ignorance of the law is no excuse. It's a legal principle that states that people cannot avoid liability for breaking the law, claiming that they were unaware of it. So I must commend LASPA for taking these strides to make sure that the information is disseminated widely.
A representative of real estate business owners appealed to the government for an extension of the 90-day window for property owners without permits to obtain them.
Thank God for the 90 days that the governor has magnanimously given. If we want to appeal, we also appeal for additional 90 days. You know why? Because, number one, so that we can have enough time to do the same. So that we can, by the end, let's say by the end of the year, the government should give us towards the end of the year, come and regularize all your papers. So that we stand on a fresh note in January 2025.
The State Commissioner for Physical Planning and Urban Development responds to some of these requests, as he gives assurances that buildings with approvals will get stickers.
From this exercise, we are going to get down to the nooks and corners of every community and societies in this state. And we are going to come out with, remember during population census, there is a sticker on every house all over Nigeria. All over Nigeria. We're going to have the same thing on all approved buildings. There's going to be a design sticker with a QR code on all approved buildings in the whole of Lagos State. And those of us with a smartphone, and our tenants, once you get to a place, from that sticker, you'll be able to judge that, okay, this building has an approval. And you take the QR code, you get the details. And regarding time extension, my chairman, sir, if you can write to me or to the governor, chairman, sir, all people concerned, seeking for extension of time on this amnesty, I'm very sure it's something that the governor will look into.
Different media being deployed by LASPA to ensure residents receive the message that puts everyone on the same page as the Lagos State government with regards to its building safety laws.
We continue in Nigeria as part of measures aimed at connecting the city center with other major towns around Ibadan, the Oyo State capital. The government has reconstructed the Olodo Bridge, washed away by torrential downpour last year. As earlier promised by the state government, the reconstructed half of the bridge has now been opened for vehicular movement to enhance the seamless movement of people and vehicles on that route. The Oyo State Governor, Seyi Makinde, who was represented by the Commissioner for Public Works, Infrastructure and Transport, Professor Daudu Shogodoyin, opened the completed right side of the bridge, which serves as a link to Osun State for public use.
An elated crowd. Residents of Olodo and environs and commuters flying Ibadan to Iwo in Osun State can now heave a sigh of relief as the bridge, which collapsed 11 months ago, has now been reconstructed and expanded. This Olodo bridge, now reconstructed, was washed away by heavy rainfall in June last year, leaving thousands who use the bridge stranded, resulting in the use of alternative routes that have been largely uncomfortable. Declaring the bridge open for vehicular movement, the Commissioner for Public Works, Infrastructure and Transport, Professor Shogodoyin, says the completion of the first half of the bridge is a further demonstration of Governor Makede's commitment to the delivery of dividends of democracy to the people of the state, regardless of political inclination, religious affiliation, or socio-economic status. The 35.6-kilometer Iwo Road, Olodo Bank, Eleshingodogbo, Odoba to Oyo State boundary is a federal road, but its construction is being funded by the Oyo State government.
The pavement at the approaches of the bridge is made up of 200 mm thick laterite subbase, 200 mm thick stone base, 50 mm asphaltic binder course, and 40 mm asphaltic concrete running course. The surface is completed with the road lane marking. The successful completion of the first half of the bridge will enhance seamless movement of people, vehicles, goods and services, and also serves as link connecting Oyo State.
The Makinde administration considers it a necessity to concentrate energy on projects with potentials for the expansion of the economy of the state and to engineer a modern Oyo State.
To God be the glory for the gift of large-hearted and forward-looking governor, Excellency Engineer Oluseyi Makinde, FNSC, for the immediate award of a 220-span bridge across the Egberi River to relieve the existing 3x3 bus cover.
Some of the residents spoke about their ordeal since last year and what value the newly constructed bridge adds to their lives.
Anytime we are coming back from our workplace, we'll be praying that rain should not fall, because if rain falls like this, it's another problem.
I appreciate our governor for a job well done.
I started the business a lot, really a lot. But now I'm so glad that now cars can be moving freely. Now the trekking will even reduce.
As construction work continues on the other half of the bridge, residents and motorists express great relief on the opening of the first section of the bridge for pedestrians and vehicular movements, and ask that work is expedited on the other half for seamless human and vehicular traffic around the area. Bukola Oriowo, Channels Television News.
In the coastal town of El Amra, Tunisia, migrants from sub-Saharan Africa asking to be released in order to reach Europe as tensions mount in the country over the government's handling of the migrant crisis. Law enforcement in the country has expanded its presence in 2 agricultural towns where roughly 83,000 Tunisians live among a growing number of migrants from around the world. Hundreds of Tunisians marched in the streets of Jebenaya over the weekend, demanding that their government expel the migrants. And Tunisian President Kais Saied has also taken a hard stance against migrants, accusing them of bringing violence and crime to the country. Well, the UN Human Rights Office says it is worried about the situation of migrants in Tunisia and the rise of the use of dehumanizing and racist rhetoric against black migrants and also black Tunisians.
Increased targeting in Tunisia of migrants, mostly from the south of the Sahara, and individuals and organizations working to assist them. At the same time, we're witnessing a rise in the use of dehumanizing and racist rhetoric against black migrants and black Tunisians. Our office has recorded incidents of arbitrary arrest and detention of human rights defenders, lawyers, and journalists who are critical of the government, as well as the government's migration policies. Reported raids in the past week on the Tunisia Bar Association undermine the rule of law and violate international standards on the protection of the independence and function of lawyers. Such actions clearly constitute forms of intimidation and harassment. The rule of law must be upheld, and those arbitrarily detained, including for defending the rights of migrants and for combating racial discrimination, released. The human rights of all migrants must be protected, and xenophobic hate speech must stop.
The 7th edition of the African Amputee Football Cup of Nations has kicked off in Cairo with the participation of 13 football teams at the stadiums of the Katemeya Petro Sport Club. The tournament is to run until the 27th of May. And the opening match was between Egypt and Nigeria, with crowds of fans cheering from the stands, and the match ended goalless from both sides at the Al Salam Stadium. The Egyptian squad is to play its second match on Monday, while Nigeria is scheduled to face Burundi on Tuesday at the Katameyya Club. The tournament features the participation of 13 countries: Gambia, Senegal, Sierra Leone, Algeria, Kenya, Morocco, Burundi, Ghana, Uganda, Angola, Nigeria, Tanzania, Liberia, and Egypt.
My expectation is very big, and I believe we are going to qualify 7 best teams to represent Africa in the World Cup 2026. And I think that what we have give as a message to the athletes, there should be fair play. The athletes, they know that their opponents are not enemy. They should play together oppositely, but not against each other.
That's where we end the program today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Layo Olarinde.